Vielleicht nur als 5%.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Vladimir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight on Gravitas is on China's military parade, marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, which was a show of military might, also sending out a crucial message. Beijing now commanding a complete nuclear triad capability, among other systems. We tell you more about this. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Getting you the latest on the Russia-Ukraine war. Russian forces launched more than 500 drones and missiles at Ukraine in that large-scale attack. With India and Russia holding fresh discussions on expanding military cooperation amid the tariff tensions with the United States, we get you the complete story. All this and more coming up. China's grand military parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II was more than just pageantry. It was a major show of power and military might. With China unveiling an array of new weapons for the world to see, China rolled out advanced hypersonic missiles, robotic dogs, and a submarine-launched ICBM with a global strike range, sending out the message that Beijing now commands a complete nuclear triad capability, among other systems. But the real story here is not just in what China put on display, but also in what it chose to leave out. And tonight we're looking at the weapons that caught the spotlight, the message they were meant to send out, and the ones left between the lines. Let's start off with DF-5C. One of the standout additions to the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force Parade was DF-5C ICBM. It is an updated variant of an intercontinental ballistic missile that first entered service in the 1970s. According to Chinese media, it has a global strike range. According to Hong Kong-based newspaper South China Morning Post, the silo-based DF-5 series missile can travel more than 13,000 kilometers. It is known to be able to carry up to 10 multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. MIRVs. They contain several warheads that can each be aimed at different targets, basically. That's not all. Perhaps the biggest one was the unveiling of the DF-61, an entirely fresh design that was on display. Its size alone suggesting it's almost certainly an ICBM. In fact, in recent years, US intelligence has reported that China tested a fractional orbital bombardment system, which is a Cold War era concept in which a nuclear warhead is placed into partial orbit, circling the globe until directed to strike a target. It is unclear if the DF-61 is tied to that program, but according to observers, its heavy launcher would certainly support such ambitions. And then came the JL-3. This is also a big one. China seemed to have paraded its latest submarine-launched ballistic missile. It would mean that with this, China has extended the reach of its nuclear submarine fleet, allowing them to strike distant targets, including the United States, from waters far off China's coast. And with the JL-3, China moving closer to a fully credible nuclear triad. That is land-based ICBMs, air-launched missiles and bombs, and submarine-launched missiles. That ensures a second strike capability in any nuclear exchange, making China's arsenal far harder to neutralize in a first blow. Next up, the YJ-21, which is a hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missile explicitly designed to target high-value naval assets, and the so-called carrier killer, capable of supersonic speeds and likely boasting a range of over 600 kilometers. It has already been launched from a PLA Navy destroyer. Small stealthy combat ship also rolled past, unmarked but seemingly designed to operate with or without a crew. Its design included features to reduce detection, like concealed antennas, and then the showstopper in a way, a legion of robot dogs. Beyond the novelty, they basically represent China's push towards what is described as an intelligentized warfare. And these quadruped robots marched out in formation, hinting at battlefield roles from reconnaissance and cargo transport to, if weaponized, direct combat. Now, their level of autonomy is unclear, of course, but Beijing may be signaling a future where such machines operate independently, unleashing literal hounds of war. Let's now talk about the rather surprising omissions from that grand parade, seemingly. Despite China's display of various missile forces, the DF-27 and the DF-41, known to be the country's most advanced intermediate-range hypersonic missile and ICBM, respectively, did not appear in the parade. According to reports, the fact that they were not shown off is believed to stem from China's emphasis on the latest development of its rocket force and to showcase weapon systems that have not yet been publicly revealed. Also, we didn't get to see the two sixth-generation stealth fighter jets, unofficially dubbed the J-36 and J-50. That drew global attention when they made their first flights at the end of last year, remember. China has been testing them, and their existing prototypes are so large that they are currently only mounted on warships. So that could be a reason why they did not appear at that parade. Either way, what was on display was a grand display of power, military might, and a message that China was ready to take on any power. Shifting focus, Russian forces launched more than 500 drones and missiles at Ukraine in a large-scale attack. Zelensky says the Russian president, who is in Beijing meeting with the Chinese and North Korean leaders, is demonstrating his impunity with fresh strikes on Ukraine. Putin says the Ukraine war could be ended if common sense prevails. Take a look.
In the dead of night, the sky over Ukraine turned into a battlefield. Sirens wailed, streets shook from Kyiv to Lviv, Lutsk to Rivne. Russian drones screamed overhead before slamming down in waves of fire. Over 500 drones and missiles, a relentless swarm of death descended upon Ukrainian cities in a massive, coordinated Russian assault. Kyiv described it as an attack, primarily targeting the nation's west, turning peaceful hours into a hellscape of fire and fear. On the front lines, too, the Russian assault continues. Russia's defense ministry claims capture of about half of the city of Kupiansk in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. US President Donald Trump, who has repeatedly pledged to end the war and warned of consequences to Moscow, has once again let a deadline expire. His 500-day ultimatum to punish Moscow ran out this week without fresh sanctions, without new action. Zelensky, who is in Denmark to meet Nordic and Baltic leaders, has once again urged his allies to take strong action to deter Putin.
Moreover, we observe the stance of the current U.S. administration under President Trump's leadership. We see not just their statements, but a genuine desire to find a solution. It seems to me there is a certain light at the end of the tunnel. We shall see how the situation develops. If not, we will have to achieve all the goals set before us through military means.
This blistering Russian strike unfolded while Vladimir Putin stood on foreign soil, a guest of honor at China's victory parade. Moscow has once again asserted the need to recognize new territorial realities, stating that a new system of security guarantees for Moscow and Kyiv must be formed. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov says that Ukraine should be guaranteed a neutral and non-nuclear status, a condition which is unacceptable to Kyiv. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Amid the tariff tensions with the United States, India and Russia are holding fresh discussions on expanding military cooperation, specifically about receiving more units of the Russian-made S-400 surface-to-air missile system. The Russian news agency reported these developments, citing a senior Russian defense export official. The official confirmed that Moscow and New Delhi are in negotiations, further stating that both sides see room to expand this cooperation. India has been operating the S-400 system since 2021. The defense system played a crucial role, remember, in strengthening air defense against Pakistan early this year. In fact, last month, India's Air Force chief described the S-400 as a major asset, calling it a proven game changer. Under a 2018 agreement worth $5.5 billion between New Delhi and Moscow, India agreed to purchase 5 S-400 systems. 3 have already been delivered, while the last 2 are scheduled to arrive in 2026 and 2027. The Russian defense export official hinted at the possibility of additional supplies beyond that contract. At the same time, Russia is also reportedly quoting India with cheaper energy. As per a Reuters report, Moscow has offered Urals crude at a discount of $3 to $4 per barrel for shipments in late September and October. A steeper discount than the $1 price cap in July. Russia's oil exports to India are also expected to climb by 10 to 20% this month, adding as much as 300,000 barrels per day. These parallel offers, missile systems, discounted oil, and the deepening of India's strategic links with Russia, remember, coming at a time when US President Donald Trump's recent 50% tariffs on Indian imports have been causing those tensions. These tariffs, remember, are primarily linked to India's continued purchase of Russian oil. The development also coming amid reports that Russia is exploring the possibility of building its advanced Su-57 fighter jets on Indian soil. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We are putting the spotlight on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's daughter. Is she the North Korean leader's likely successor? We tell you why this question is being asked. We're getting you the latest on the monsoon fury in India affecting different parts of the country, getting you the updates from on the ground. Pakistan has been rocked by a wave of deadly attacks. At least 25 people have died after 3 separate attacks struck the country. The blast hit the southwestern province of Balochistan, where a suicide bomber targeted a political rally of the Balochistan National Party there. 14 people lost their lives. Dozens more were injured when the attacker detonated explosives in the parking lot of a stadium in the capital, Quetta. At least 7 of the injured remain in critical condition. The BNP party leader had just finished addressing the crowd and was leaving the venue at the time of the explosion. He later announced on social media that he was safe.
When the explosion happened, we were just getting down from the stage. The blast occurred at the main gate. We were approximately 20 feet away from the site of the explosion. The blast, which was a suicide blast, happened near the vehicle of our party's central leader, Nawab Niaz Zairi.
In fact, elsewhere in Balochistan, a separate bombing killed 5 paramilitary troops and injured 4 more. No group has claimed responsibility for the deadly explosions in Quetta or near the Iranian border in Balochistan. The violence was not limited to Balochistan. In Pakistan's northwestern province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 6 soldiers were killed when a suicide bomber drove an explosive-laden vehicle into the gate of a paramilitary base in the city of Bannu. 5 more attackers stormed the camp after the initial blast, sparking a fierce gunfight that lasted 12 hours. Security forces eventually killed all 6 assailants. The group Ittihad-ul-Mujahideen Pakistan later claimed responsibility for this attack. Balochistan, Pakistan's largest and resource-rich province, has long faced insurgency. Despite hosting major infrastructure projects tied to China's Belt and Road Initiative, it remains the country's poorest region. Despite contrary statements made by the Field Marshal Asim Munir, violence has sharply escalated in recent years. Back in April, Munir, in his words, had claimed that even 10 generations of terrorists cannot harm Balochistan and Pakistan, in his words, stating that Pakistan will defeat them very soon and that the 1,500 terrorists from groups like BLA, BLF, BRA, among others, cannot, quote-unquote, take away Balochistan. Those were his words. All right, getting you these latest images now and updates coming in as US President Donald Trump meets the new Polish president.
Who are you with? On the police radio.
Okay. How do you know there's no action? Would you say that putting secondary sanctions on India, the largest purchaser outside of China, they're almost equal, would you say there was no action? That cost hundreds of billions of dollars to Russia. You call that no action? And I haven't done phase 2 yet or phase 3. But when you say there's no action, I think you ought to get yourself a new job, because if you remember 2 weeks ago I said, if India buys, India's got big problems, and that's what happened. So don't tell me about that.
Mr. President,
right now there have been survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at a press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files, these documents to be released. And Thomas Massey, who was sponsoring a discharge position to get the House to vote on releasing those documents, says he doesn't believe you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be, and he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow-walking the release. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir?
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax, because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now, D.C., it's a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone. That's a term. It's a term of art. It's a safe zone because it's very safe. You can walk down the street now and nothing's going to happen. No crime, no murders, no nothing. Because we had a lot of problems with certain places, and we still do. All run by Democrats, or for the most part run by Democrats. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success, like ending 7 wars. Sure. I ended 7 wars. Nobody's going to talk about, because they're going to talk about the Epstein, whatever. Sir, I understand that we were subpoenaed to give files, and I understand we've given thousands of pages of files. And I know that no matter what you do, it's going to keep going. And I think it's enough, because I think we should talk about the greatness of our country and the success that we're having. I think we're probably having, according to what I read, even from 2 people in this room, we're having the most successful 8 months of any president ever. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what we should be talking about, not the Epstein hoax.
When did you make a decision on Ukraine, Mr. President?
I have no message to President Putin. He knows where I stand, and he'll make a decision one way or the other. Whatever his decision is, we'll either be happy about it or unhappy. And if we're unhappy about it, you'll see things happen.
Sir, Venezuela, can you give us a sense of what the U.S. policy, or what you're trying to achieve with the aircraft carriers, or the boats, I should say, in near Venezuela, and also the boat that you mentioned yesterday where 11 people were killed? What was found on that boat, and why were the men killed instead of taken into
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people. And everybody fully understands that. In fact, you see it. You see the bags of drugs all over the boat. And they were hit. Obviously, they won't be doing it again. And I think a lot of other people won't be doing it again when they watch that tape. They're going to say, let's not do this. We have to protect our country, and we're going to. Venezuela's been a very bad actor. They've been, as you know, they've been sending millions of people into our country, many of them Tren de Aragua, some of the worst gangs, some of the worst people anywhere in the world in terms of gangs. And we had some in Washington, D.C. We took care of them very quickly, but they're out of here. They've gone. But Venezuela's been very bad, both in terms of drugs and sending some of the worst criminals anywhere in the world into our country. They emptied out, you don't know this, but they emptied out their prisons in Venezuela, and they emptied them out into the United States of America. And that's part of the problem we have. We're getting them out. We're getting them out rapidly, but it's caused a tremendous problem. And Pete and all of the people that are working very hard to rectify the stupidity of the Biden administration, allowing these people to pour into our country with open borders. We are paying a big price as a country for the incompetence of the Biden administration. But think of it, opened up prisons, drug dealers, drug lords, everything coming out of Venezuela. They said, and we said, we're not going to put up with it anymore. So Venezuela has been one of the worst actors in the whole group, and we have a group of pretty bad actors.
Are you wanting to enforce withdrawal?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. At the end of this month, the government or the Congress has to pass a budget. Do you think we can avoid a government shutdown?
Yeah, I do. I think the Republicans will vote for an extension. We won't have any Democrat votes. We could give the greatest budget ever. Tax cut of 50%, everybody taken care of, perfect for women, perfect for men, perfect for minorities, perfect for everything, and we wouldn't get one vote for the Democrats because they've lost their mind. They are so deranged. They have Trump derangement syndrome, and I don't want to burden the Republican Party with it, but they really are. They've become almost sick. They actually think there is a disease. It's called Trump derangement syndrome. They've got it. No matter what we did, no matter how good, you could give them everything that they've ever dreamed of, and you wouldn't get one vote. These are sick people, and I think we're going to have a tremendous midterm. We just approved the largest tax decrease in the history of our country. We have things, if you think of it, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security for our seniors, no tax on overtime. Deductions when you buy a car and you borrow money to buy a car. First time they've ever seen anything like this. Middle-income people get deductions. You get a deduction when you buy a car. Nobody's ever seen. And by the way, they're selling cars like crazy. Cars are pouring back because of the fact that we have tariffs. Cars are pouring back into our car plants are pouring back into our nation. They're coming from all over the world. They're coming back. You know, we lost about 54% of automobile manufacturing over a 30-year period, 35-year period. They're all coming back. I think they're coming back higher than ever before. We have AI going up. What we've done is amazing, and what we've passed is amazing. But the Democrats, I don't believe, will get one vote. It's very anti-crime. We want anti-crime. They're in favor of crime. We're against crime. You know, they gave us things like men playing in women's sports, open borders for everybody, transgender for everybody. I mean, they want a transgender for all of the crazy things that they were saying. And, you know, people would say they're 80-20 issues. I say they were 97-3. I always say 97-3, and nobody knows who the three are. This is the best issue of all. They are against preventing crime. They are fighting us. I want to go into Chicago, and I have this incompetent governor that doesn't want us. Do you know that this weekend 72 people were shot in Chicago? I'm embarrassed to say it in front of the president of Poland. 11 people were killed. 72 people were shot. Last week, 7 people were killed in Chicago, a place which is probably your number one place. I hate to say it.
Yeah, a lot of Poles in Chicago.
And we got to keep it safe. But 7 people were killed. The week before that, 5 people were killed, and 21 people were shot. This is in 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, they lost almost 35 people were killed. It could have been stopped. If you look at Washington, D.C., 3 weeks ago, it was the same or worse. And now it's considered a totally safe zone. Restaurants are open. They're bustling. Restaurants, you have to see, restaurants were dying. Nobody wanted to go out. They didn't want to be attacked. They didn't want to be mugged. They didn't want to be attacked even in the restaurant. And you take a look at what's happened. Friends of mine that haven't gone to a restaurant in 4 years, one of them went out 5 times in the last 2 weeks to a restaurant with his family. They feel totally safe. Washington, D.C. is a totally safe city. You're not reporting any crime because there is none. They said crime is down 87%, and I said, no, it's not. It's down 100%. We have a great thing going. I could do that with Chicago. We could do that with New York. We could do it with Los Angeles. So we're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago, or do we go to a place like New Orleans, where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in and straighten out a very nice section of this country that's become quite tough, quite bad. So we're going to be going to maybe Louisiana, and you have New Orleans, which has a crime problem. We'll straighten that out in about 2 weeks. It'll take us 2 weeks, easier than D.C. But we could straighten out Chicago. All they have to do is ask us. to go into Chicago if we don't have the support of some of these politicians. But I'll tell you who is supporting us, the people of Chicago. And I sort of want them to let it be known. They have incompetent people. A guy like Gavin Newsom, he's the governor of a state that if we didn't go into Los Angeles with our soldiers, with our National Guard, you wouldn't even be having the Olympics there. They were going to take it. And remember this, your top law enforcement officer in Los Angeles said, there's no way we could have done this without President Trump coming in with the troops. We saved Los Angeles and we saved the Olympics. Thank you very much.
I got this, sir. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Mr. President, in regards to Gavin Newsom, would you be open to a congressional investigation in regards to the specific Palisades fire where killed 12 seniors to see if there's any negligence on Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass in regards to those deaths?
Well, I'll tell you, there's negligence on not getting people permits. That is negligent. We got all of the federal permits. Lee Zeldin, the federal permits are much more difficult. They were all gotten within 30 days. People could go build their houses. It's going to be years before they are allowed to build their house. And Karen Bass is grossly incompetent. And Newsom, this is a very incompetent guy. I watched him with the hands. I'm saying, what's going on with the hands? There's something wrong with him. Do you watch him? There's something wrong with this guy. But more importantly, he didn't allow the water to come from the Pacific Northwest. You know, they have tremendous amounts of water in California. People don't know. They send the water out to the Pacific Ocean. So I demanded it be open. If that were open during the fire, before the fire, you wouldn't have had the fire because all the sprinklers would have worked in the houses. They had no water. They had no water in the fire hydrants. You wouldn't have had the fires. It would have been put out after one house, two houses. But he stopped the water from coming in. And I had to send in the military to have that water opened after the fires. And now they have water, but he should have more because they've restricted, they still restricted. There's something wrong with these people. There's something really wrong. As to investigation, I view it as a gross incompetence. I view it as an ideology that's wrong. It's a radical left ideology. And if I didn't win this election, I think our country would be destroyed. I don't believe you'd be here right now, and our country would be destroyed. Yeah.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. What are the most important branches of interest between Poland and U.S. in your opinion?
Well, it's just the relationship we have. I think there's a great trust and a great, more than most countries, more than almost any countries. We have some in a category that's very special, and Poland is in that category. We have a very special relationship. It's like the question about the soldiers that was asked. We never even thought in terms of removing soldiers from Poland. We do think about it with regard to other countries, but we would never know. We're with Poland all the way, and we will help Poland protect itself.
I would like to add something. Yeah, of course, security is most important also for our relation. And I'm a historian, as you know, maybe, Mr. President.
Sure.
I'm a historian, and this is the first time in Polish history, in 20th century and the 21st century, that the Poles are happy that we have foreign soldiers in Poland. So the American soldiers are the part of our society nowadays. We have almost 10,000 soldiers, and this is the signal to the whole world and also to the Russian Federation that we are together. But we are not like the Poland free riders in Europe and in NATO. Mr. President Trump knows it, because our GDP for military service achieved 4.7. So we are probably the one NATO nation which is on this level, and we will not stop. Me, as the President of Poland, we are going to achieve 5% of GDP for military service, but with American soldiers on Polish soil, we solidified and we are secure.
Just about that, you know, Poland was one of two nations that paid more than they were supposed to with NATO. I don't know if anyone knows that, but there were two nations, and Poland paid more than they were supposed to. They thought it was low. And by the way, since then, at my request, they've raised it from 2% to 5%. But Poland was one of two nations that paid more than they were supposed to, which was a very nice thing. Yeah.
Mr. President, you were not invited to the parade
Never even thought about it until just now.
President Abramowitz, what's your message for President?
Never even thought. It wouldn't have been my place to be there.
On tariffs? Will you visit a restaurant in D.C.? You haven't gone to.
I might. Sure.
You haven't gone to one in either of your terms that wasn't.
How do you know? How do you know?
Because I and many other.
Do you want me to prove you wrong? Do you want me to prove you wrong?
Yes, please.
But I will. I think it's something we could consider doing. I'd love to do it. I love the White House food, but after a while, I can see going to a nice restaurant. It's safe. If you would have said, like the Governor Moore wanted me to go and walk through Baltimore with him, and I said, you know, I think I'm a brave guy, but there's no reason to be stupid. They have crime that's at levels that nobody's ever seen before in Baltimore. They've done a terrible job. We'd go into Baltimore, straighten it out very quickly, too. You know why? They respect our soldiers. You see our soldiers. They respect our soldiers. We'd go there, too. But we're going to have people asking us to go. They're going to want to, and I think the people of those places the politicians are not in tune with the people. The people in Chicago, the people in Baltimore, the people in all of the places we talk about, they want to see us there. And I think we're pretty much waiting till we get asked and properly. We're doing them a big service. Yeah, please.
You're talking about how historic these tariffs have been, bringing in revenue, additional revenue for our country. You've also mentioned before they could possibly replace federal income tax.
Possible.
Do you think that's
someday it's possible? It used to be. So if you go back to 1913 is when they ended tariffs. We were the richest ever from 1850. It was all tariffs. We didn't have income tax. 1850 to 1913. In the 1887s, about 1887, they had the Great National Tariff Act, and it was a group of people that got together because our country was so rich, they didn't know what to do with the money. We had so much money, they didn't know what to do. It was a group of very prominent people that were set up to hand out money to everybody because we were the richest we ever were. Proportionately, we were in 1887, around that time, even in 1913. We ended them in 1913. How did that work out? And then we went to the income tax system, and then we had the Depression. And by the way, a lot of people try and say that, oh, tariffs with the Depression. No, they ended in 1913, and then we went to income tax, and then in 1929 you had the Depression. They did try and bring it back in 1931-32, but the Depression had long started, and this poor, beautiful nation was gone. It was gone. We suffered for 25 years. It took 25, 30 years to really recover from the Depression. And we don't ever want to see that happen again. The tariffs are vital to the success of this country. When I say I ended 7 wars, at least half of those wars were ended because of the power of tariffs. I was able to say, well, we're not doing any business with you, or if you're going to war, we're putting a big tariff on you. And all of a sudden they announced that the war was settled. I settled 7 different wars, one going 31 years, look at the Congo and Rwanda, look at that, 31 years, 10 million people dead. I got it settled. And a little bit of that one, less than in some cases, had to do with trade and had to do with tariffs. So, you know, tariffs are vital to our country. And just so you know, other countries use them on us, but I just use them a lot better. We're in a much better position. We have trillions of dollars coming into our country. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be a very poor nation, and we would be taken advantage of by every other nation in the world, friend and foe. We're not going to let that happen. And we have a very, very big case in the Supreme Court. I can only say this. Our country has a chance to be unbelievably rich again, but it can also be unbelievably poor again. If we don't win that case, our country is going to suffer so greatly.
What's the backup plan, sir?
But I think we're going to have a big victory. Even if you look at the people that brought the case, they're foreign-oriented. They're foreign. Countries have taken advantage of the United States for so many years. And I started with China. You know, last term, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs from China. But when COVID came, the last thing I was going to do is we're going to tariff France and Italy and, you know, others, Spain, when they were doing so badly. But now we made a deal with the European Union where they're paying us almost $1 trillion, and they're happy to do it. You know what? They're happy. It's done. These deals are all done. I guess would have to unwind them. We've done deals with Japan, with South Korea, we've done deals with many countries and others to come. And if we didn't have the power, prestige, and dignity of tariffs, and I used them wisely, and people respect America again, and we've become a rich country again. The money coming in is incredible. And again, they use them on us. If we didn't have them, they would use them on us, and we would have no way to fight them. We would be a third world nation. So I think it's one of the most important cases I've ever seen go before the Supreme Court of the U.S.
You gave Vladimir Putin a 2-week deadline to agree to talks with Vladimir Zelensky. That deadline is now nearly approached. Can you give us any indication of when you will make it?
Well, I'm having a conversation with him very shortly, and I'll know pretty much what we're going to be doing. We've taken very strong action, as you know, and in other ways we've taken very strong action. But I'll be speaking to him over the next few days, and we're going to see.
With who, sir?
I'm going to know exactly what's happening. But I'm not happy with all the people. You got 7,819 people killed last week. Russian soldiers and Ukraine soldiers, right? Not American soldiers, not soldiers from Poland, but they're human beings, they're souls. They have parents, they wave goodbye to their parents, and their parents never see them again. That's the end of them. Over a stupid war, and I want to see it stopped. Now, we have stopped the money. We send weapons to NATO, they pay full price. We don't, Biden spent $350 billion so stupidly. And it was one of the reasons that this whole thing happened. A big reason this war happened was sitting right in these chairs, this one in particular. So I will tell you that I think we're going to have a good solution, but they're losing soldiers at levels that nobody has seen since the Second World War. This is the worst conflict, and it's just going on and on. It's one's defense, one's offense. The offense moves a little bit, just a little bit. You take a look, they move inches. They're dropping bombs and killing everybody. The whole thing is not since the Second World War has there been anything even close to this. And they're not soldiers from my country. This is my country. But I have a power to end things. That's why I was able to end 7 other wars. And you know that I thought of the 7, they're basically 7. Those are tough wars to end. Much tougher, I thought, than the war with Ukraine and Russia. I thought that Ukraine and Russia have a very good relationship with President Putin. I thought that would be much easier. I thought that would be in the middle of the pack, maybe one of the easiest. Sometimes you never know with war. War is a very interesting thing. You never know with war. War is complex and dangerous, and what a mess, what a bloody mess. It's going to get done one way or the other. But they have to stop killing all of these souls. They're souls, and we have to stop killing.
Just to follow up on that.
Thank you, press. Keep moving. Thank you. Out the door. Guys, out the door. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Keep moving.
All right, U.S. President Donald Trump with the Polish leader, of course, talking about the relationship between the United States and Poland, but also making a series of crucial statements ranging from how he has no message for the Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying that, quote unquote, he knows where I stand. Also going ahead to say that if they are not happy with what Putin does or decides, you will see things happen, quote unquote. Also, using the words, quote unquote, Epstein hoax, once again, lashing out at the Democrats, also reiterating how he has contributed to ending multiple wars. Shifting focus for now. Earlier, as the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un stepped off his armored green train in Beijing, officials greeted him with handshakes and led him down a red carpet. But what actually caught the attention of many observers was not just the North Korean leader himself. It was the young girl walking just a few steps behind. Smiling politely, dressed in black with her hair tied in a bow, She is believed to be Kim Ju-a, Kim Jong-un's daughter. Over the past few years, she has appeared at several public events, most of them military-related. Her presence in Beijing fueled a lot of speculation. Is Kim Jong-un signaling the rise of a future successor? This trip is her first public journey abroad, reportedly. And that is hugely symbolic. She was at a parade where the Chinese leader Xi Jinping showcased his military might and where her father has been standing shoulder to shoulder with Xi Jinping and the Russian president. She may one day be expected to navigate those partnerships herself. That's the speculation. On Wednesday, as Kim strode down the red carpet ahead of Xi Jinping's military parade, his daughter was notably absent. Very little is known about her. Her existence was also only confirmed in 2022 after years of rumors. Back in 2013, American basketball star Dennis Rodman revealed Kim had a baby named Ju-a. During his visit to Pyongyang, he said that he held Kim's baby and spoke with Kim Jong-un's wife during the visit, but her exact age remains unclear. Reports suggesting she is now a preteen or early teen, though estimates are based largely on Rodman's account and on how old she might have been when he met her as an infant. And her introduction to the world came in typical North Korean style, by the way. In 2022, standing alongside her father as he oversaw the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile. In 2023, she made several more appearances, again at military events. At one parade, she was seen gazing out at rows of ICBMs in the capital, Pyongyang. And according to experts at the time, the message was unmistakable. North Korea was tying its nuclear program and its military future directly to the Kim family line. And in North Korea, dynasty runs deep. Since the country's founding in 1948, leadership has passed down through the family. First to Kim Jong-il in 1994 and then to Kim Jong-un in 2011. In fact, when Kim's daughter stepped onto the public stage, it inevitably sparked debates about whether she could one day inherit the regime. Is she a likely successor? Some experts pointing to the way the North Korean state media has also described her as beloved, respected, suggesting she may hold special status. And her early exposure to military events also is being seen as training to lead the 1.3 million armed forces of the country and build loyalty among the ranks. Yet, others remain doubtful. They say that Kim's two other children, who are rarely seen in public, are more likely to be considered as successors. And there's another theory doing the round. Some say that her appearances could be less about succession and more about image making. Some observers have also said that Kim Jong-un may be using his daughter to, in a way, present himself as a fatherly figure, a family man. And it does make sense to an extent that he would use his daughter in this role. By contrast, almost nothing is known about her siblings, who continue to be shielded from the spotlight in a way and may still have the chance to grow up in secrecy. Kim himself once studied in Switzerland in the 1990s. But for Ju-a, reportedly, that option is closed because she is now too well known. Spain's Prime Minister has accused Europe and the West of double standards over Ukraine and Gaza, warning that it could, quote-unquote, undermine its global standing. In an interview with The Guardian, Sanchez has called Israel's assault on Gaza as one of the darkest episodes of international relations in the 21st century and has described Europe's response to the Gaza war as failure. Sanchez, who was the first senior European leader to accuse Israel of genocide, has said that Spain was pushing to suspend the EU's strategic partnership with Israel and even punish it financially. Perhaps the strongest statement that he made was on the United States. Sanchez warned that US President Donald Trump had tried to dismantle the very rules-based order America once built after World War II. He said, and I'm quoting, "The most shocking reality is that the principal architect of the international order is now weakening it. And that is why there is an opportunity for the EU and also the UK, quote unquote." Despite the clashes with Trump over NATO spending, The Spanish Prime Minister said that Spain remained a reliable partner and committed to strong ties with Washington, while criticizing US withdrawal from global climate as well as health efforts. And he argued that Europe could strengthen its influence, but only by acting morally and consistently. According to him, Europe needs to avoid double standards. Sanchez's statement coming ahead of his London summit with the UK Prime Minister, the first significant bilateral meeting in more than a decade, and made possible by a post-Brexit deal over Gibraltar. But what Sanchez has said is true of the criticism that has come Europe's way to an extent. When it comes to confronting the tragedy unfolding in Gaza, critics have pointed to a rather uncomfortable truth that Europe's response to Israel's bombardment, including its staggering humanitarian impact, lacks the consistency once so ardently displayed when it was Ukraine that was facing Russian onslaught. And it's also true, to a certain extent, that some European nations were among the first to start criticizing the sheer bloodshed that Israel was subjecting Gazans to when the war started in 2023. But it is changing. And now more and more countries, from France to the UK to Belgium, are pledging recognition of a Palestinian state as the humanitarian crisis deepens in Gaza. Spain's Prime Minister has called Gaza one of the darkest episodes of the 21st century. But the question still is, can Europe translate these words into action? Can it forge a united front on Gaza and affect real change on the ground? For now, that remains to be seen. Google surviving the biggest corporate breakup threat in a way, as a US federal judge spares Chrome and Android from the auction block. Our next report explaining how artificial intelligence is quietly dismantling the search giant's empire, piece by piece.
In a big ruling, a US judge ordered a major makeover of Google's search engine in a crackdown aimed at curbing the corrosive power of an illegal monopoly. This is a 5-year legal battle between one of the world's most profitable companies and its home country, the United States. The 226-page decision rebuffed the US government's request to break up the company. So now, if a user is searching for an air conditioner, for example, on the internet using Google Chrome, Google knows and floods him with ads of AC brands. Now Google will have to share this information of user search with its competitors like Firefox. But Google says it will undermine user privacy. But while Google's lawyers celebrate, the company faces a far bigger storm, one no courtroom can contain. Artificial intelligence is rewriting the internet, and the king of search suddenly looks less untouchable. For 2 decades, Google's search engine was the gateway to the web. Its dominance was unchallenged. But now, millions are asking AI chatbots for answers instead of typing. Queries into Google's box, every prompt to ChatGPT, every question to Claude or Perplexity, chips away at the search engine's foundation. Google has poured billions into its own AI arsenal. It has Gemini, AI-powered search, even embedding assistants across Android devices. Yet, critics say it's playing catch-up. The paradox, the company is spared by a judge, but its crown is slipping in the marketplace. Washington's trial aimed to tame monopoly power. Instead, the real breakup may come from innovation itself. If AI becomes the new search, Google's fortress could crumble, not by law, but by technology. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Kampir, signing off. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world.